Today's edition of the FASTTRAK webinar series is going to be covering reservations, essentially adding and editing reservations, covering some of the things that we've gone over in previous webinars, kind of bringing everything together now, such as the pricing, the general settings, global settings, customers, bringing it all together now so you can see where it's starting to be utilized in the creating of the reservations. So today we have Adam, who is here joining us today. We have myself, Brian, and again we have Eddie joining us for today's edition. So today's agenda, as I stated, going to be adding reservations. In doing this, we're going to be addressing both existing customers as well as new customers. And I'm going to go ahead and touch on the group reservations, how that whole import area works there. It won't be a great amount of detail in there because that will be a whole webinar in itself, but just want to show you how you can utilize that to import in manifests that may be sent over from your customers into the FASTTRAK program as reservations. And I'll go over some of the communication. By that I mean the emails and such that we can send out to our customers, as well as status updates. Keeping in mind a lot of those were addressed, but we're going to go ahead and address them again here today. So let's go ahead and get started with today's webinar. As you can see on my dispatch grid here, I already have some existing reservations in there. General information, confirmation number, pickup dates, statuses, driver names, so on and so forth. The grid functions, what you can do with it. Again, that's addressed in, I believe, next week's webinar, how to create customized ones there. So first thing we want to talk about is adding reservations. There are several ways to add a reservation into the system. You can either start within the customer and corporate clients by entering into here. Go ahead and typing any name you want. And then as it brings you that information, select whichever one you would like, and you can click on the Create New Reservation. In doing this, as you can see, it opens up a reservation form asking you whether you want ground, arrival, or departure. I'll go ahead and select a ground on this one here. Next thing it asks you is the date you would like this reservation. You can select any date. You can move forward monthly by clicking the arrow here to move forward to whatever month you would like, and then select the day. The pickup time, you can select from the drop down. We'll put this one at 8 p.m. or you can also switch it to AM. Keep in mind there is a setting underneath the user settings that allows you to utilize 24-hour time on this if you would prefer. That was addressed in the global settings webinar if you need to refer back to that. But if you prefer 24-hour time, you can do that by changing your setting there. Pickup address would be the next thing that we're going to put in here. Keep in mind we are using Google Mapping, so in doing so, all you need to do is just start typing in whatever you know about it, whether it's the numbers of the address, or you can simply start typing in the name of, for instance, a hotel or resort or whatever we need in there. In this one, I'll go ahead and go with the Point Hilton Tapatio. And as you can see, it adds all of the information in there. There's no need for you to memorize these addresses or keep a stored list of them any longer. We do utilize the Google address there. Down below there, we have a drop-off area. Again, in here, I can start typing in the address of whatever I would like. It does have a bias to where you are located. So in this instance here, it believes I'm in Phoenix, so it's going to give me Phoenix addresses. I can select any one of these, again, by selecting the option there, and it populates the information into the reservation. Of course, you can always edit these things either by using the broom here to clear it out, and it'll clear out all of the information, or I'll just go ahead and start that back in there and get that information in there again. Well, there we go, put that in there. Once you have that information in there, the pickup and drop off, trip notes may also be added to the reservation. Trip notes are usually something specific about the reservation. It may be something to the effect of customer will need assistance with a wheelchair, or may need additional assistance with extra luggage. It's usually something specific about the reservation that you want to convey both back to the customer as well to the driver on their paperwork. So keep in mind, yes?
Brian, back up just a little bit to Google and make sure that the group understands that in the event that there's new neighborhoods or something that Google's not apprised of yet, it's not in their database yet, that they can click the G and disable Google and type in the address of a new subdivision client within a subdivision and override Google at that point. Okay. Both in stops and on the pickup and drop off if we're doing a ground.
Yes, there are certain addresses that Google is not aware of yet. They are updating them as fast as they can, but there will come a time where you'll notice that an address will not take. Simply click on the G and it overrides it, and it allows you to type anything in there you would like. It will not auto-populate. So again, the trip notes, anything I add down here will be entered onto the reservation as well as to the paperwork, as I said. Preferences, these are usually something about the client. Client may prefer blue cars or wants to listen to specific radio stations within the car, anything like that. Keep in mind that both the preferences and trip notes can be pre-populated within the customer profile. By so doing, they would automatically be entered into the reservation every time you created that reservation. Again, you can always override those if you would like. There is also settings underneath the global settings. We discussed a couple of weeks ago about whether you can hide these two options here or display them both to the customer and or driver. There are options that allow you to do that. Working our way down from the top up here, company name. If you are operating multiple companies within the FASTTRAK program, you do have the option utilizing the drop down here to determine which particular company within your system this reservation is assigned to. Now, by default, each customer is assigned to a company when you set them up, but you can always switch them based upon what they may be doing on this particular reservation. Phone number is populated from the customer profile. It can be overwritten if you want to type in something different there. And the passenger is always assumed to be the customer. However, you can overwrite that anytime you want to by simply typing in the name of who the passenger may be. Keep in mind, you also have access to a list of passengers that are available within the customer profile. In this instance, we might have a daughter or brother or sister, something to that effect. By selecting any one of those, in so doing, it will ask me, do I want to utilize that address instead of the addresses that I placed into the reservation? Again, you can overwrite any of those things there. So those passengers can be stored within the customer profile. Passengers number of passengers that are in the vehicle for this particular reservation, as well as bags. Now, these are not required fields, the passenger and bags. However, based upon your vehicle settings, which we discussed, I believe 2 weeks ago, you can set the number of passengers maximum and bags that are allowed in particular vehicle types. And what that would do, if I tried to put 15 passengers into a vehicle that only held 3 passengers, it would warn me when I was trying to assign it. Same thing with the bags there. Greet sign alias, this would be if the person would like to be met at the airport with a name other than their name. Maybe Patrizia here wants to be called Mr. Smith at the airport. It allows them to do that. Passenger cell, this would normally be populated out of the customer profile there, or any of the passengers. Also, if I typed in a different passenger name here, I could enter in their cell number. In so doing, if you have the SMS text messaging enabled, by having the options selected here, the box checked, it will then in turn send them notices. And by notices, it's the en route, on location, as well as reminders to the passenger based upon your global settings of what they will receive and when they receive them.
Pre-trip notifications.
Passenger email. This would be the email of the passenger. Now, the customer, as we entered in there, would have their own email within their profile. But in this instance, maybe Patrizia said, hey, my cousin's flying in next week. Go ahead and make a reservation for them. I would have entered their name there. And then also do me a favor, send them a confirmation of it also. By entering in their email address in the passenger email, it will include them in the confirmations as well as reminders by emails and or status updates if you're not utilizing the SMS texting. Ordered by. The ordered by is a drop-down list of the contacts which were entered either into the customer profile, or in this instance, we have this customer attached to a Sony corporation. So this list here would also include those contacts. By selecting one of those contacts, it will include them in any of the emails, reminders, as well as status updates that will be sent out, as well as SMS texting if that's enabled. Ordered by phone. This would be the person who was calling in the reservation. So in this instance, if Dave had called in the reservation for Patrizia here, most likely I would have entered their phone number to the record. This enables me to have a direct contact if there's any questions or concerns about this reservation. Perhaps Patrizia is flying in or in meetings all day and unable to answer any questions about the reservation. This would give you a direct contact back to Dave Thompson in this instance to be able to clarify any questions that may come up with it. Reference PO and cost code. These are not required fields. I say that, however, there is a setting within the customer profile that can make this mandatory for you to fill these prior to saving the reservation. They're not required, as I stated, most of the time. However, if your customer requests some sort of reference PO to bill back to, or when you're creating invoices, you need to group them all based upon a certain reference PO, this would enable you to do that. Other areas in here, the booking source, booking category, trip type. These are all items that are entered underneath your lists. I'll go ahead and show you where those are real quick as a reminder. If I go back over here to my menu up in the upper left-hand corner of my screen, go to my list management. In here, I have my trip type, booking category, booking source, and trip category. These are various areas. By selecting any of them, I can add, edit, or delete any one of those. Those are then selectable within the reservation for you to store the information in here. They serve several purposes. They can be dispatch tools to help with dispatching, and I'll discuss that in our dispatching grid webinar. But they also enable you to be reportable fields. Now keep in mind that trip category and trip type are the only two that show up on paperwork. And by that I mean both on the confirmations and the trip tickets. Booking source and booking category do not show up on any paperwork. However, they are all reportable fields. So under trip type, I may specify what it is. In this instance, I'll go ahead and select a wedding. Trip category is going to give me a little bit more information about this wedding. As we know, weddings can be hourly or they might be transfers. So in here, I could select hourly or transfer based upon what it is, giving me a little bit more information from that reservation. Booking category. A lot of people utilize this to capture information such as retail jobs, corporate jobs, whatever they might be. Keep in mind that you can add, edit, delete any of these based upon what type of information you want to gather later on in your reporting capabilities. Booking source. These are utilized to determine where the reservation came from. Perhaps you do a coupon and you want to know if it brought you any revenue. Every time somebody mentions the coupon, you could select it, newspaper advertisement in this instance, and then at the end of the week, month, or year, generate your reports based upon these sources or categories or trip types, anything's there, to determine not only the number of reservations that was brought to you utilizing those various items there, as well as the revenue that was brought to you utilizing those things. There are two checkboxes in here: require special handling and is VIP. I'll show you what those do. The require special handling creates the confirmation number to be backlit in yellow, letting you know that there's possibly something special about this reservation, hopefully reminding a dispatcher to open it up and look inside to see what may be different about this reservation. Is VIP turns the customer name red, letting you know that there may be something special about this person. Now keep in mind that every one of our customers are VIPs. However, there may be something that is different about this one. Perhaps in a group, maybe this is the person paying the bill, and we want to make sure that we give special attention to that one.
Brian, we have a question from Wendy. What if someone calls on a reservation that is not listed in the ordered by drop-down list? Where do you enter that new person calling the reservation in?
You would just simply type it in there. This one, I'll address that here in a second. This particular one has contacts in it, and based upon my settings, I am required to select one of these contacts. However, I could type in anything I want here, enabling me to type in that name, which would be stored to the reservation. So again, if the customer already has those in there, they will be in a drop-down list. If they do not, I can simply type it in there as well as their phone number there. Okay.
Automated confirmations to that contact would be affected though until they're entered into the contact list for the customer, correct?
Yes, there would be no email address for anybody you type in here.
Mm-hmm.
Only those that are contacts within the profile would be receiving the additional notifications based upon the settings in that profile. One other area down here, affiliate notes. This area here would be something that you would want to convey to a farm out company when you were assigning it to another transportation company. Anything entered in the affiliate notes does not show up to your customer. You may want to convey something to that farm out company, such as please remember to get the coupon or the certificate, whatever it might be, or anything else you want to convey to them about this customer. That is only transmitted to them on their paperwork. As well, if you are utilizing the e-affiliate network and sending it to another FASTTRAK user, that information can also be sent through that portal into that reservation in the other system. Down below here, we have document contracts. Now, we address this in the global settings, setting up companies, but in here, I have the ability to change which contract is going to show up on the paperwork that goes with this. Standard would be my basic contracts. I could have prom contracts or wedding contracts, as each of them may have different cancellation policies or instructions that you want to convey to the customer. Attachments. These attachments were addressed in the previous webinar also, where you can add them into the system. But in here, I can select which ones I would like to be sent with the emails, the confirmations, if I would on this one. If I select in this instance the CC authorization, it would be sending them not only the confirmation, but it would also be sending them a credit card authorization for them to fill out and hopefully send back to you. Now, over on the right side here, we have all of our pricing. We did discuss this last week, but just a quick reminder here, I can select from any of my pricing plans, which I'll be utilizing for this particular reservation. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and use the test Geo here. Selecting my vehicle type, we'll go with sedan S-Class there. And just a review on this, if I want to get the price for this, I click on the retrieve quote, and it'll bring me back the rates to this reservation based upon what I have set in there. It reminds me where the start address, the drop, all that information there. By clicking OK, it will bring in the rates based upon my geo setting prices there. Now, again, I can always change this anytime I want to. If I go back to my default pricing, it's going to reset all the prices as well as all of the additional items based upon what that is. It will always be bringing in the default pricing. You can override that anytime you want to. Over here, I can either change the estimated hours on the right side, or I can go up here to the left and change the estimated drop-off time. You'll see here, if I switch this to a 4-hour reservation, it automatically updated the time over here as well as updated the rate over here. And it would have affected anything such as the gratuity or anything else there on that reservation. We do have the option to create this as a flat rate. Perhaps you are offering a rate that is different than your normal rates to this customer. So you're going to say, okay, for the 4 hours, I'm just going to charge you $245. By doing that, anytime you change this amount here, it does not recalculate 4 times the 458. It's stating that it's a flat rate of $458 there. However, if I uncheck the box, as you'll see, it now goes 4 times the 458 with a new total on there. So this just enables you to utilize flat rates or your basic hourly rates. Also, a reminder here, if I had zones, fixed rate pricing for this, by selecting the little binoculars here, it would bring me the list. I know that this pricing plan does not suit this one here, but had it matched any of these point-to-points, it would have populated it into there and provided me the rate for this reservation. Down below, we have all of our additional pricing items. Keep in mind that you can update any one of these anytime you want to, simply by entering in amount. You can also delete out anything you want there, select any of the items, working our way down through all of the various fixed rates and percentages. You can adjust any of those things there. You can also see in here, I know that this, for instance, service fee has a rate of 30%. You may have a question of what is that being calculated on? If you hover over the little icon here, it will tell you which items that percentage is being calculated on. Same thing if I go to the admin fee. As you can see, they're being calculated on different items. Discounts. These allow me to add a discount at any time into a reservation, simply by putting in an amount there. Keep in mind, if the customer had a permanent discount, that would have been added into there already. I have my taxes that I can select, any of those different taxes just by selecting those. As a reminder, those taxes were set up within the pricing structure. And you also had the ability under global settings, if you only had one tax that you were always applying to your reservations, it would have already been added into here. Now, there is one other thing here that does come up periodically. Perhaps this customer calls up and says, hey, I'd like you to do me a favor before you pick me up. I'd like you to stop at McDonald's and get me a McFlurry because I really have a craving for a McFlurry. You can add these one-off items into any reservation at any time. If you click on the little icon here where it says add fixed charge item, you'll see I have the ability here to type in anything I want, put in a rate for it, $5. You can also determine if the taxes are going to apply to that or not, as well if you're going to pass that on to the driver. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and give them the entire thing because they're the ones that are going to have to stop and get the McFlurry there. By adding that into there, you'll see that it is now within the reservation. Keep in mind, anything you add in here is only existent on the reservation. It is not adding it to your price list for later usage. So if it's something that would be a recurring item, you would want to add that underneath your pricing management so it's available in all the reservations. Now, person calls up and says, you know what, never mind, I don't want that. Simply highlight it, click on the little X, and the item will be gone from the reservation. So you have the ability to add things as well as delete things. If I accidentally removed it, I can click on the little yellow arrow there and it'll place it back onto the reservation. Now, once we've got all the information here for the reservation, there are a couple of things we can do. We can add a commission agent to the reservation. Commission agents were set up within the employee agents area by clicking on the add commission agent. In this one, I see that I have two that are already assigned to it. I can decide not to pay that one or go ahead and pay that one. If I want to add a new one, I can click on the add button, select any of the existing ones, and then add them to this reservation as well and determine what they're going to do. Now keep in mind, this can be undone or these can be added in the costing area, and that'll be addressed once we get to the costing and billing section webinar. Pay affiliate hostess and guides. Now if I know that I'm already going to be sending this out to another company or another transportation company, I can go ahead and assign that affiliate right directly into the reservation by selecting the Pay Affiliate Hostess and Guides. I can select which company I'm going to be sending it out. If I've already agreed to an amount with them, I can type that amount in there and I can mark that as a pay to them. Or there are times when they may be collecting the money and they're going to owe it back to you. you would want to select the affiliate collecting, and that means that they have to pay it back to you. Additional drivers or guides that may be on this reservation, you can select the add option and select any of your drivers. Perhaps you have guides in here. You would want to add them onto there as well. Put in an amount that you're going to pay them. Click on the OK option, I guess, there. And then what'll happen there, as you see, that was a 0. I didn't put an amount in there. Maybe I meant to and forgot to. I can highlight it, click on the edit option there. Go ahead and place in the amount due to them. Again, select any of these. Something, we'll put in $5 on this one and put that in there. What would happen now is once I get to my finalizing and costing, my pay areas, this particular employee, maybe the guide, would have a pay calculated of $5 for that reservation. That would show up in the pay reports. Go ahead and close out of there. Now that we've got this far, there are a couple of things we can do to finish this reservation. I can either select the option down here to save as quote down in the lower left-hand corner. That'll save this as a quotation, which can then later be changed to a confirmed reservation if you would like. Keep in mind that by saving it as a quotation, it would be sending them the quotation contract information as opposed to the confirmation contract information. I can cancel it because I made a mistake here and didn't want to deal with that. Or if I click OK, I am simply saving this reservation and be done. Notes, if I want to add any additional notes into this reservation at this time, click on the add button, type in any notes I want, and then these will show up on the grid that there are notes for this reservation. Keep in mind that this does not get printed anywhere, so this is just internal notes only. Next segment would allow me to save this reservation, and then it allows me to reverse it for another reservation. Perhaps this was an arrival coming in today, going to someplace, and then tomorrow they're leaving. I would simply click on the next segment and it would reverse the reservation around for me going in the opposite direction. I'll show you that here in a second. Copy, by selecting the copy. Oh, there's a message. It's telling me that the credit card is expired. That's good. By selecting the copy, it saves the original reservation and then asks me if I would like to make any additional copies of the reservation. It'll ask me how many copies I want to make of it, 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. It's keeping the same information over and over again. A repeat, Mr. Smith here or Patrizia here needs this reservation every Friday, or in this instance, every Wednesday for the next 3 months. I would simply click on the repeat option here. And what it'll do is it'll ask me, again, it's asking me if I want to send some stuff out there. It'll ask me how often I want to repeat it. I want to repeat it on just that day. I need it weekly, every week. I can go how many occurrences. If I do this here, it'll be every Wednesday for the next 5 weeks. If there's a driver and a vehicle that I had already assigned to it, I can persist that, and that means that they would automatically be assigned to all those future reservations. If there were stops in there that I wanted to repeat, I would simply click on the copy reservation stops and all that information would be repeated in all those reservations. If I utilize the make all reservations at segments, basically what that does is it makes all of the reservations aware of the other reservations. So if I tried to cancel one of them, it would remind me that there are others that are attached to it, allowing me to either address those with the customer, or go ahead and ignore that and say, no, we're going to keep all those other reservations. So we're going to go ahead and save this reservation. Again, it's reminding me that the credit card is expired. Now I could click on yes here and update that. I'm just going to go ahead and go with no. And it's going to save that reservation. Now, the day that I put that on, should have paid attention to that. We'll go to April 10th here. Here's the reservation we just created. As you can see, all the information was there in that part there. Okay, so a couple of things here. That was one way to get to it, going through the customer and corporate clients. You can also utilize the add booking, which would probably be the most frequent method of creating a reservation. By clicking on the add booking, as you can see, I have access to all of my existing customers. At this point, I can start typing anything I want here and bring up that information for that customer. I could have started typing last name, first name, corporate affiliation, phone number, or email address if I knew any of those items there. And as you can see, it would just, again, bring in the same information for that customer, already doing that part there. I can also start a reservation as a ground. Essentially what that does is it stops me from having to select inside the reservation what type it is. Again, if I go here, it automatically knows it's a ground, so I don't have to select that. I go immediately to the date. You can also do the same with an arrival. We want to get out of that thing there. By doing an arrival or departure, it automatically populates that. If I were to go into a new booking, once again, and after doing a search through my customer lists here, the person did not exist or had not used me before, what I would utilize is the new customer quick quote. In so doing, it opens up a blank reservation for me to start creating a reservation. In this one, I'm going to go ahead and go with an arrival here. Select today's date. As you'll see, it comes in with new customer because it doesn't know it's attached to anybody yet. So over here on the right side, I would go ahead and type in their phone number, type in their name, and let me do this a little different here. John Smith. Greet sign again, cell number, all this information would apply down through here. Now, of course, at this point, I have no ordered by contact and a profile because I don't have a profile. So I could type in a name, I could type in self if it was just John calling, or I could type in somebody else if it was calling for them. In this one here, we're going to go through an arrival. I would put in the airline. Now again, I have a list of all my airlines here. I can simply start typing and it'll bring me the information. I have different American Airlines here. We addressed that in a previous webinar also, how these can be utilized, but it's also information that can be passed on to a driver. In this instance, I'm going to go with a baggage claim. Go ahead and type in a number of the flight. Select an arrival time for this particular reservation. Now I'm just going to put 5 p.m. on that. An arrival airport. Again, select which it is. Now, if you're utilizing the flight tracking and verification, you can at this point verify this information that the customer is trying to give to you by clicking on the little airplane here. There is other settings that allow it to just save and then it verifies it upon saving, or you can have the option to manually do it. By clicking on that, it's going to go out and verify this flight. And as you can see that the actual arrival time of this flight is 5:13, not 5 o'clock as the customer provided me. I'm going to go ahead and click on yes. It's going to ask me if I would like to update the times, and it updated the time accordingly on the reservation. Again, the drop-off, We'll go ahead and type in a drop off here. Now, one thing I did not address previously is that you can have additional passengers and or stops on this reservation. In this instance, I'm going to go ahead and click on the add passenger right here. I'm going to go ahead and I can select existing venues, but again, we don't need to utilize that anymore because we're utilizing the Google. And in here, I'm going to go ahead and type in a couple of locations. Whoops, did that in the wrong area. Yeah, let's do this. We're going to stop there at that location, and we're going to go to another one. These are locations that we're going to be routing on the way to the final drop-off. Now,
and note that he's typing the venue into the address field, just like we do on the main reservation form.
Right. Now, I can change these around. Maybe customer says, no, you know what, let's go to the 1234 West Bell first. I simply highlight it, and over on the right side, click the up arrow or the down arrow, and it'll shift those around. So I don't have to start all over again and delete these things. If you'll notice also down here, we do have the Google. You can override by doing that and clicking that G down there. As you can see now, it is no longer utilizing the Google function. So I could type in there anything I wanted to if I needed to. I'm going to go ahead and delete that one out of there. We don't need that one there. There are options here. I could have passengers. I'm going to have multiple passengers in this vehicle, and I want to know all of their names ahead of time. I could have added those in there. An additional arrival or departure or whatever we have in here. These are just options that you can select in there. As you can see, I can type in the phone number field, notes field. These are usually utilized if you're using a passenger or something in there. There's also over here on the left side, date that can be utilized. Now, many times a person may be just going out to dinner with a couple additional stops and there's no time constraints on it. However, in this instance here, perhaps this person is flying in, has a meeting at the Biltmore Fashion Square, and then another meeting at this location here. You can add time into here by selecting these options here. Again, keep in mind, these are not required fields. However, if it is a reservation with time constraints, it's recommended you add those items in there. That way it shows up on paperwork for both the customer, letting them know that you are aware of their instructions, as well to the driver, letting them know that there are time constraints on this reservation. Once I click on the OK option, as you see, it now is red, the passenger, and by hovering over it, I can see those additional stops. It tells me there are 2 stops there. I also have the ability to map this reservation simply by clicking on the show map, and it'll pull up a routing of this with these additional stops in there on this reservation. Let's go ahead and look at this one here. It shows me picking up at the airport, going to the Biltmore, which is at 2502, then going out to West Bell Road, and eventually ending up here back at the Point Tapatio. Shows me the mileage there, 31 miles, 51 minutes on that thing. I can zoom out or zoom in, whatever I want to do on that thing as well. So it gives you the ability to see the route on that. Keep in mind that that routing is available also to the driver in the driver app, as well as online to the customer if they were booking online, being able to see that. Let's go ahead and save this reservation now. On this particular one, I am going to utilize the next segment so you can see how that operates there. Actually, no, let me save this first. I'm going to go ahead and click OK because I came through a new customer here. This thing is going to ask me a couple of questions. I'm going to go ahead and click on the OK option. Excuse me. It's going to tell me that I've entered information in there. And at this point, it's going to ask me whether I just want to save it and be done with it. In so doing, it will create a customer profile in the background for you to utilize later. Or it also enables me to get directly to the profile if I needed to go make any changes to that profile ahead of time. So if I click on the yes option here, it is saving that reservation and it is opening up their profile. At this time, I would have the ability to update any email addresses had I not entered them into the reservation. In that one, I did not. I could add addresses in there, credit cards, anything else like that. It just lets you get into the profile immediately for you to enter information in there. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that thing and go OK. Oh, OK. Let's go back to that. Yes, I guess I forgot to save that. Let me go here, click OK. It saves that profile in the background for you to utilize later, and it is saving that reservation. It's going to ask me if I want to send any of the confirmations and or add any additional attachments to it, as well as add additional messages to it. I could select the customer. I could also add an additional email for it to be sent to. In this instance, I'm going to select no, do not send. So the reservation is saved. As you can see over here on the left side, I have a plane pointing downward, indicating an arrival. It is yellow at the moment, letting me know that there are stops associated to this reservation. By selecting the small plus sign over on the left there, I can see these stops. From here, I can add more or change any of the stops I need to on that particular reservation. You'll notice that the reservation directly above that has a green icon on it. That is telling me that that plane is on time. That is part of the tracking functionality within the program. It also gives me a little bit of information there. If I hover over it, I can see which, it keeps one move away from me there. I can see the terminal it's coming into, the baggage claim, as well as the other information there. If I right click on that reservation, it gives me all of the information here as well. When it's expected to be into the airport, the gate that it left from in JFK tells me what gate it's coming into, as well as the terminal in Phoenix. But you also know some of the weather if you want to know that stuff there. I can also see future reservations. These are all the future reservations for that particular customer, as well as all of the reservation details for that particular customer there. Okay, is there any questions out there?
None currently, Brian.
Okay. Other things I can do here, I can always edit the reservation. I can delete it as well. One thing I do want to show you on Mr. John Smith here, if I go back into his reservation and select the edit option, the two checkboxes down here is VIP and requires special handling. I'll go ahead and select those, and you can see that, no, okay. Go ahead and say yes to that thing there. As you can see, what it did in here is it turned the confirmation yellow, and it turned the customer name reddish with a VIP there. The VIP does not print out anywhere, so you don't need to worry about that part there. Some of the things you can do once you have the reservation set up, underneath the documents, I can email the confirmation simply by clicking on the email confirmation. It's going to have a list of the recipients. In this particular one, I don't have any. I can either send an updated one or the original one there, add additional recipients, append the message to it, and select which attachments go out to it. Once I have a driver assigned to it, I can then, let's go ahead and assign any driver to this reservation simply by selecting it, assigning a driver to it. I can now also email trip tickets to the driver. I can view the trip ticket. If I want to email it, I'm going to select the email. If I wanted to view that confirmation previously, I highlight it, select it, and as you see, all the information is in the confirmation there. Confirmation number, pickup times, vehicles, where we're picking up, as well as my additional stops with my drop-off and my rates all in there, and all of my terms and conditions as populated in my company settings there. Okay. Eddie, anything else you can think of to address here?
No, not really. I noticed you have the globe icon at the bottom. You can show them that reservations made online come into that area of the screen.
Okay.
And did you cover groups yet? You have time for groups? Okay.
Now, we're getting closer to the end of this. I don't know if we need to push that off to the next one or not.
Push it off to the next one then.
Okay. Some of the things that we can see on the grid here, Eddie did mention the internet bookings. I want to show you that. But there's also another icon up here, these three little items here. If you ever have any question about any of the little icons or things that show up in here, there's a little question mark right here. By clicking on the grid icon legend, it tells you what all of these things over here mean. Arrivals and departures. In this instance, we were looking at a multi-segment reservation, letting me know that there are other reservations attached to that. Again, if I try to take action such as canceling that one, it's going to remind me the other ones exist. And then some of these other ones here we'll talk about, the billing and TransmitNet. They just show up over here letting you know different things. One thing I do want to show you, if I make any changes to this reservation, for instance, if I were to go into this one here and make a change, which I did previously, it turns red over here on the far left. What the red indicates is that there are changes that have been made to this reservation. These other two do not have red here. I'll show you this real quickly here. If I highlight it, click on the view changes, it's going to let me know which changes were made and who made them. If I want to acknowledge those, I simply click on the acknowledge changes, and as you see, the red has now disappeared. So the other way that reservations can get into the system is through the online portal, the booking portal for your customers. They can also come in through other methods such as Deem, TransmitNet, Groundspan, other things like that. We do have a whole webinar based on the customer portal coming up that I think everybody should sign up for. But by clicking down here at the internet bookings, this indicator, it gives me a list of all of the reservations that have been received either online through the customer portal, as well as e-affiliate, as well as the Deem, and in some instances by carry. If I highlight that particular reservation, I can click on the edit and view it. It'll open up the reservation. I can directly email a confirmation here. And normally what would be going on here is I would mark it as reviewed and it would disappear from that list. Now, you want to be doing that on a regular basis so that when new ones come in, this indicator is down here letting you know that there are new reservations, because they're not always coming in for today's date. You may not see them right away. This would enable you to see future booking reservations booked online, as well as through the other GDS methods there to you. Okay. The one thing we did not get to today was the group reservations. We'll go ahead and have another webinar on that. That does take a little bit more time. I'll just give you a little hint of where it is underneath groups, group management. This is another way to enter in reservations into the system. Essentially, you would add a group, clicking on the add button there, type in the name of the group, select a vehicle type that is going to be associated to that group, any contacts, any information there. It allows you to then import the passengers into this. I'm going to do this quickly, and again, I apologize. We are going to come back and address this in much more detail. If I select this one here, which happened to be a manifest that a customer had sent me, clicking on the load option there, click on the load CSV, it now is entering in all of those reservations that are in that spreadsheet there. So I don't have to manually type all these things in here. Once they are all in, all I need to do then is import the records. By so doing, I can import them. It's going to tell me if it's correct or not. Once it's done that, all of the information is now loaded into the system. Keep in mind that they are not reservations at this point. They're merely a list that you can then create with reservations. You'll also notice here that I have the availability to validate these flights if you're utilizing the any of the flight tracking within the system. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. It's going to run a validation on all of these flights here, letting me know if the information provided to me by the DMC or my customer was correct. It'll come back and let me know 11 of the 39 were correct. Some of them were not correct. Click OK. If I scroll over to the right, I'll see the ones that were verified and the ones that were not verified. This now lets you go back to your customer and get proper flight information. Perhaps they gave you the wrong information. This lets you get it updated before it's too late. Once I have all those in there, the group is now within the system for me to create reservations off of it. If I go back into the that one there, I just double click on it. It now has all the information in there of all the reservations or not the reservations, excuse me, but of the manifest. I click on the vehicle assignment, select a customer that it needs to be assigned to. Let me go ahead and get one here that I haven't done yet. That would probably be a little bit better. Which is let's go to this one here. Okay. Here's the list of all of the passengers that I would have imported into the system. I'm going to go ahead and assign them to the customer that they belong to by utilizing that. Select the vehicle type that's going to be utilized for it. If they're going to a venue, perhaps it's a group all flying in and they're all going to the same venue, you can select that from in here by selecting any of the items that you have in here. In this instance, we're going to say they're all going to a different point of view. Trip type, arrival, departure, or ground. Pickup time, if they're all uniform times, or in this instance, I'm going to be utilizing these. Passenger name, I can change a passenger name here. It may be the ABC group. Ordered by.
Brian, point out that the selection of the venue is so that you get proper addressing and GPS information for drivers, for those people using GPS, because in the list of jobs to be imported, it's just text. By selecting the venue, you're actually selecting, just like Google would, the address, city, and state, and zip.
Yeah, the venues, the ones that you have within the system, they would have the proper addressing. Otherwise, in a spreadsheet, most people might just say, when they send it to you, different point of view. You could then map that or utilize any of yours there within the system, which would then, when you create that reservation, allow you to, as Eddie stated there, be able to map that, as well as the driver being able to utilize his driver app, his or her driver app, to also map that reservation. Now from here, I can either select one reservation at a time, or in this instance, perhaps I want to put those 4 people into one vehicle. I used my shift key to select those 4 there. I'm going to add multiple rows as a single reservation. And as you can see, it put all 4 of those people within that same reservation. I'm going to go ahead and create this reservation just so we can see where that is. If I can remember the day on that one there, it's letting me know that I haven't finished this. I'm going to click on yes. It's going to do that. And then we have to go back a ways because I forgot to update those dates. But we can simply do that utilizing the calendar function on the grid there. By doing that, let's go there. Go back to 528. Now again, I'm going to click on that.
527, I think.
527?
I think so.
Okay. Well, here they are. As you can see, I've got little people standing around next to each other. That's indicating to me that that is a group manifest. The one I just created, I happen to know is this one, 61220 or 2222. 2222. By right-clicking on it, going into it, and clicking on the group passengers, here's the list of those passengers that I added into that reservation utilizing that group function. Now, there are times when somebody may call up and say, hey, Mr. Jones is not going to make that flight. He's going to be on a different flight. By going into the reservation, locating him into there, I can either remove him from this reservation and he's put back into the list to be added later, or I could simply move him over to another group reservation. I don't have to undo everything and start all over again. This lets me move these passengers around at will without having to go into those reservations and do those various things there. Now, if I go into that reservation, as you'll see here, I have the passengers. By selecting the passengers, I can see them all right here as well. One other thing that you'll often run into, the group coordinator may call up and say, hey, Mr. Jones is changing his flight. And the group coordinator may not know which flight or reservation you have that person booked into currently. You can go to search and do a search for passenger name. Now, this is going to bring me a lot of results here. Do a search in stops, and it's going to bring me a whole bunch of reservations where Mr. Jones is a passenger in that. I can then locate which one he is in and then move him to another one. As you see there, like I said, there's going to be a lot of those. Probably should have used one less like that. Do a clear search there, go back to today. Okay, I know I covered that group reservations relatively quickly there. I think we're going to have a whole nother webinar dedicated to that because there's still a lot of things I want to address in there, especially utilizing the manifest, what to do with it and how to manipulate it, the various things there. We did cover creating the reservations both from an existing customer, either going through the customer and corporate profile list, or directly from the add booking and selecting one of your customers, as well as addressed how to create a new customer reservation of somebody that hadn't utilized you before. Unless there's any other questions, I think we're pretty much done here today. Eddie, Adam, any questions out there?
No, Brian, I don't see any more. It looks like we're good.
Okay. All right. I want to thank everybody again. Just a reminder, I'll say it again. I say it every week. Don't forget to do your security updates. This is mandatory. This must be done. Without doing this, we're not going to be able to continue updating. These are both for your security as well as updating the program on that. Adam, you want to add anything to that real quick?
Not really. I mean, it's a mandatory update. We're slowly working towards getting that all completed. Overall, it's just to make the system more robust. Get up to date on the latest security standards. We have to continually update the system to keep up with different threats in the industry, and we'll continue to do that. And the security update is a part of that overall process.
Okay. All right. I want to thank everybody for attending today. Remember, we do have another webinar next week, every Wednesday. Remember to sign up for it. Also, as a reminder, in approximately 1 month from now, we will be appearing in Las Vegas at the limo show there. We'll be at booth 560. Please come by with any questions. We'd love to see you all, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. And hopefully see you all next week. Thank you and have a good day.